part of it is a rewiring of how we think about the priorities in our lives and how we think about the priorities in our society. Because many of us have put extra emphasis on money or on a job, not because it's where our passion is, not because it makes us happy, not because it brings satisfaction in any way, shape, or form, but it's simply what somebody or a society has told us to do. And we've just followed suit. And we've done it long enough that we have disengaged from all the other important aspects of our life. So what I'm encouraging all of us to do to get back to places of balance is start paying attention to those moments where something seems different, and maybe in a good way.
Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. This is the Conscious Edge podcast, and I'm Alecia St. Germain, entrepreneur and coach. Along with my friend and wellness advocate, Jonathan Duggar, we're diving into what it means to embody radical self-acceptance while still evolving to lead with compassion and kindness. We're sharing our own experiences and expertise as we unpack imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination, and all the other things that lead to burnout and keep you from experiencing pure joy, business growth, and maximum impact. This is a safe and supportive space to explore what it means to be a human creating wealth and building a business. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Welcome, everybody, back to this week's episode of the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm Alecia St. Germain, and I am here with my buddy, Jonathan Duggar. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
Yay. So after last week's episode on mindfulness, we wanted to go into this whole life balance topic because it's so related to mindfulness. And if you're new here, Jonathan and I started this podcast really out of the idea that we wanted to build a retreat. And so we've been working on that. We're going to tell you more about that in a future episode here soon and how that's unfolding. But one of the things that we really have discovered is that among both of us, the clients that we work with are oftentimes in this transition where they have businesses, they are experienced in buying real estate perhaps, or some sort of aspect of creating wealth in their life, but they still haven't felt like they arrived yet. They're in that kind of chaos of figuring it out and figuring out how to balance building the business and doing that aspect of it. But also the reason for it is wanting that more holistic lifestyle, wanting to have control of their time, wanting to have time to travel and just live an extraordinary life. And so how do you fit it all in and balance it all? So we see wealth creation as part of really wellness. And so there's a lot of different aspects of wellness. If you could go through and just grab the different aspects that I know you have your wellness wheel that you use. So just what kinds of areas or components do we want to talk about today?
First of all, just from a sort of a language and definition standpoint, often we put wellness and healthy, we equate those two. And health, or physical health, or physical or mental health even, those are components of wellness, but wellness is much bigger in terms of this balance aspect of total living, or total self. So there are multiple models of wellness though out there, and I usually prescribe to one that is 6 or 7 different dimensions, and that's what they're usually referred to as the dimensions of wellness. So that would be physical wellness, which is the one that we often over focus on. Got to get to the gym, got to eat right, all those things. Of course, important, but only one slice of the pie. So physical wellness, emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, and then we also have relationship, or sometimes called social wellness, intellectual wellness, occupational wellness, and then the seventh component that I usually tease out from occupational that some others don't is financial wellness. So financial wellness is one of the things that we really are focusing on with this podcast. But Alecia and I have been having conversations very recently, and this will tie into, I think, our retreat as that grows in its manifestation. The overarching concept of being successful. And success and wealth often are also equated. Our success and money are often equated, where money is just a slice of the success pie. So something I started thinking about last night in preparation for this podcast is that success and balanced living, that might be the same thing. You are truly successful when you maintain a balanced life. So when you're truly well, you're successful. That's how you spell success. So, well, not how you spell it, but that equates to success.
Well, and really the foundation of everything that you and I started this conversation back in January. We started having these conversations was that people, oh, wow, for how long we've been talking about it, but also, oh, wow, for how far we've come in such a short period of time,
that's
too.
That's where my brain went.
Both,
exactly.
Like, wow, only 8 months we've really been talking about it. And the mismatch between people who have created a lot of results in their life, have a lot of wonderful things happening for them, who by all rights, in fact, people who look at you say that's a successful person. Yes. And the people who are looking at that person going, oh, they're so successful. That's who I look up to, or that's who I really admire. I just can't believe, how much this person has created. That person themselves doesn't feel successful.
Yeah.
And there's a huge mishmash. We did a survey. We found how disproportionate people were perceived as successful, but they didn't feel successful.
Exactly.
And that's not right.
No,
that's not okay.
That disalignment or that dissonance has become, I would say, the most common attribute of for entrepreneurs. And I could globalize that a little bit more to most people in general, most adults in general these days, that have a dissatisfaction for where they are at any given point in their life. So
that was really where this quest that we're on, it's like we're taking a quest, and it has a lot of little side quests for those of you who play video games.
Or rabbit holes, as we call them sometimes.
Rabbit holes, like I think the young people call them side quests.
Yeah.
But I could be making that up and sound like a complete middle-aged dork right now, but I'm okay with it. So
own it.
Yeah, it's cool. I can almost hear my daughter going, Mom.
Oh, Mom.
Okay, so that's really where this whole conversation started. And I really wanted to talk about the word balance, because that's something that has been talked about for a long time. I hear people talking about work-life balance or what balance means. And I oftentimes I hear two sides of the coin. One is this pursuit of balance. And then the other side is, well, that doesn't exist. That's not real. And I always looked at balance as a pound of feathers and a pound of iron.
Explain that one.
Meaning the amount of space that a pound of feathers would take up because they're fluffy is much larger than the amount of space a pound of iron, which is much more dense, would take up. And so when I think of balancing my life, it doesn't mean that in order for me to feel balanced, I have to spend equal amounts of time in each one of these sectors.
Mm-hmm.
That I can fill cups in less time doing really efficient things. I could spend 10 minutes playing with my daughter. And if it's really good quality time and both of our cups are filled, it only needs to take 10 minutes, even though I might spend an hour on a coaching call.
Yep.
And yet still feel balanced.
Yep. And let me caveat that or add to that, I guess, from the standpoint of what we often do. It's not even amount of time or effort in any given those components of that wellness wheel. It's that we steal from one of the other areas in order to overemphasize or make up for in something else. So we neglect self in order to be more social or to spend more time on the job or try and make more money. Or we neglect our relationships. I just don't have time for socializing right now because I've got this huge work project. Well, whenever we do that, there are moments in time when it is a necessity, where we have to prioritize, absolutely. But those become maladaptive habits. And we tell or we convince ourselves of this reality that we don't ever have time for a social life. We don't ever have time for self-care. We don't ever have time to go to the ballpark and watch our kids play ball because I've got to make this amount of money. I've got to do these projects at work. So where the destructiveness comes in is where you become a person that has eradicated a few of those slices of the pie. They no longer exist. You don't have any healthy relationships. You don't have any social outlets. You don't have any spiritual practices because you've extinguished them because you have put a necessity, and society's probably helped you put an increased emphasis or necessity on any given component. But what the science tells us and what's history is really starting to tell us because of the increase of lifestyle type illnesses, obesity, heart disease, cancer, and the increase in the prevalence of those is that neglect over time is destructive, and that every component of the wellness wheel is important. Maybe the degrees change depending on cycle of life, need for focus on something, but they're all component and all have to be attended to. So that's where the balance comes in, is giving attention to each of those in a necessary way.
Yeah. And I think that around some of these wellness models, there's some studies around centurions and like the different components that they have and involved in that. And so there's social aspects and spiritual aspects, and there's what they eat, but there's a lot, and what their lifestyle is, but there's some things that get overlooked so much that are so important. So let's talk about really assessing, taking this opportunity to assess maybe some areas that are out of balance, and how would we do that? How would we do that?
Well, this is great tie back to last week's episode on mindfulness. So when we practice mindfulness and become much more adept at paying attention to those discrepancies, to those moments of fallout, to being angry all the time, and where it's coming from and how it's manifesting and how it makes us feel and the thoughts it provokes. And we become adept at that attention to those without judgment. It becomes much easier for us to affect change. Because when we notice that when we're out on those rare moments that you might go outside and stare at the trees, or you're amongst the trees, or you're on a walk, or you're getting fresh air, and your neck doesn't hurt, and you don't have that pounding headache that you always get at 3:00 every day. And so what's different? I'm outside. Maybe I should do that more. You think? Absolutely. But something that simple, that's not an exaggeration. That happens to people all the time. That the neglect is something very specific and very easy to add back if they just make the space for it.
So you have mentioned something to me, and of course I love it because I describe the Conscious Edge, like my company, the Conscious Edge, is the place where modern science meets ancient wisdom.
I love
and
that.
So
That gives me goosebumps every time you say it.
So what we do is a lot of experimenting.
Mm-hmm.
We approach things with curiosity. And so you described, and I just want to make sure it really lands with people, that mindfulness is like a laboratory. It's an experiment, and you get to be really curious and almost take a researcher standpoint and say, how do I feel when this is happening? Or I notice that I don't feel this. What's true about this situation that I could replicate or bring more of into my life? So we're in this human experience of building a business and creating wealth that we talk about on the Conscious Edge podcast. We really are talking about life as an experiment.
Yep. Life is a laboratory.
Life is a laboratory. So I wanted to make sure you really hear Jonathan when he is saying, like, notice when things that normally ail you aren't what's true about that situation, what's happening, and really getting present to what you can create and bring forward and start adapting. And that's what we do at the Exponential Entrepreneur when we're running our immunity to change tests. We're running these tests, we're changing behavior, and we're finding out what happens if we do this, what happens if we do that. And over the course of time, we end up creating almost like a protocol for behavior change of how you're going to keep yourself moving forward with your goals when you get trapped into old belief patterns, when you get trapped into doing things. So, I mean, that's a lot of what you're describing, is really experimenting with and then replicating those results in other areas.
Exactly. And part of it is a rewiring of how we think about the priorities in our lives and how we think about the priorities in our society. Because many of us have put extra emphasis on money or on a job, not because it's where our passion is, not because it makes us happy, not because it brings satisfaction in any way, shape, or form, but it's simply what somebody or a society has told us to do. And we've just followed suit. And we've done it long enough that we have disengaged from all the other important aspects of our life. So what I'm encouraging all of us to do to get back to places of balance is start paying attention to those moments where something seems different, and maybe in a good way. I had a friend recently I was talking to, and they were talking about this trip that they had just been on. They were noticing all these physical symptoms that they had prior to the trip, and they had kind of gone away. And I just said, kind of jokingly, I was like, well, maybe you just forgot what being relaxed feels like. And he started like welling up. He's like, that's not even funny, dude. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I think I have. I don't know what that is anymore. And that's probably true for a lot of people because you spend the majority of your time amped up, stressed, anxious. Like you were talked about in our last episode, Alecia, you know, that
addiction to stress.
Addiction to stress.
Yeah. And using it as a tool to get stuff done.
Yep.
There's other tools to get stuff done.
Much healthier approaches and much more effective. Much more effective.
Yeah. Gosh, you know what keeps coming to my mind? And you know how there are things when you have a podcast that you want to say, but you're afraid to say them because you're afraid of being judged for saying them. And then when you've done the work that we've done, you know you're supposed to say them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it.
Say it.
Say the thing.
Do the things.
So one of the things that I sometimes see advice given to young people who are starting a business is that they should work harder than they've ever worked in their life, like put 7 days a week, 16 hours a day is some advice that I've actually recently seen touted on social media. And I had a reaction to it because I initially called it a trigger, and trigger means dysregulated. Like I'm not in my body. I'm losing control of my emotions. I didn't feel that. I was like, I feel like there's something amiss here.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that would be good advice for someone. And I was like, let me dissect this a little bit. Let me see, is this true? And I'm like, well, when you're young, you don't have kids, you don't have a lot of responsibilities, you don't have some of the other things happening that once you get into being married, having kids, other parts of life that you would have. But here's what I see could happen with that advice. It becomes a habit of working that hard.
Yep.
And it can become an addiction to creating that money and creating those results and so it can become where like my value is tied to me working this hard or creating X results or achieving this amount of money. And later in life, when you do have kids and those are things that you want kids, you want to travel the world, you want to do other things, your body will have that neural pathway so strong there that you'll have to unwind it to actually be able to enjoy those things.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. And that's happened at a societal level. It's a gross misalignment where we've got to take active steps to bring things back into a place of healthy.
Yeah. So when you said there's a time and a place,
yeah,
sometimes there's a time and a place. Like I know when I run summits, it takes a lot from me.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my family, we know that it's going to take a lot from me. It takes months and months to put together. And sometimes things go wrong at the end where I end up working late at night and things like that. And so I know off the backside of that, not to schedule something else, that I need to schedule downtime. So this summer, I on purpose had scheduled some very specific downtime to pour into my family and just be with myself. And I did. It took me a little bit of time. You've heard me talk on past episodes, like the intentional not scheduling and how a little uncomfortable that was because it had become sort of a habit. So consciously going into 2025, knowing we were going to build this retreat, that we just started the podcast, and I wanted to focus on building that, and then also exploring. I told Jonathan earlier, I'm playing with Instagram. I've never really dipped into social media and understanding it. So I feel like I have this like little lab going on to see like, ooh, what happens if I do this or what happens if I do that? So it's been really fun to explore. But my point is, I only intentionally am taking on things that I know are going to take some extra brain power from me because I've never done them before.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided not to do a summit in 2025, even though I can do it, even though it's old hat, all the places are in place. It's not necessary right at this point because of the lift that it is. So it's being really, really intentional in both business decisions and then making sure that aligns with life. So,
and I think what you just said is a key aspect, is being intentional. And a big part of being intentional is being aware. And part of this imbalance that we've created in day-to-day living comes from being unaware. We stay in a place of almost being oblivious to the things that are harming us because it's easier that way. That's kind of a defense mechanism. It's related to denial of where we've discounted it so much. We don't need it. It's not useful to us. It's not helpful. It doesn't make me more money. It doesn't get me that promotion in my job. It doesn't build my business. So we discount it. Well, the intentional and the awareness, the balance of that is we do need it, figuring out how we need it. How do we balance it with what we still need to do in those other aspects of our life? So, but intention and attention, maybe that's a whole episode right there because it's huge. That's huge. Something else. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, please.
Well, something that came to mind was you were talking about that is this also tracks back to the self-compassion episode because we as a society have gotten so adept at undermining things that are good for us by discounting it as it's not useful or it's being selfish. And it made me think of when I was still in clinical practice, I was in a super high stress atmosphere and was a clinical director in this atmosphere. So the guy in charge, and I was young, newly out of grad school, and I was working myself to death, 16 hours a day, not sleeping, not eating like I should, drinking pots of coffee. I had a nurse manager who was kind of a mother figure too, and incredible at her job, but had to come to that place of understanding a lot better of work-life balance, and have probably watched a lot of doctors burn themselves out over the years. And one day, I don't remember what happened, but I was really frustrated. She just pulled me aside and she said, "Honey, until you start taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of anybody else." And that was a defining moment for me, because not that I took her advice to heart right away and figured out how to do it. I'm still working on it. Still a work in process. But that whole concept of I'm not being selfish if I decide to work a 12-hour day instead of a 16-hour day, or if I take 30 minutes for lunch and get outside and take a walk as part of that, or whatever it was that helped balance those scales. But we have become the society that has talked ourselves out of, have undermined almost any form of self-care because it's selfish, it's frivolous, it's costly, it's taking away from those important things when it's just the opposite. Without those pieces of pro health, mental health, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health, behaviors, without those actions, everything gets out of line and everything starts to falter. It's a domino effect.
Yeah. And I think, so as you go back through, if you were someone who wrote down all the different components of the wellness model that Jonathan presented, and you were to look at where do you feel like maybe it's a little weaker than the others, right? And so what I find is sometimes you don't work on all the things at the same time. I think this is, in my opinion, where people go wrong on January 1 is they want to do some kind of life overhaul and they come up with like the whole wellness model. Yes. And they're going to implement changes in the entire wellness model. And they're like become these like amazing humans. And it's really picking one thing at a time. And it's constant attending, like tending the garden, because today you might be focused on finance, right? Mm-hmm. And while you're focused on finance, you sort of got a little off on your sleep. And so now it's over here focusing on sleep. So it's not that they all have to be done at exactly the same time either. It's baby steps and deciding what am I going to be focused on. And I think for me, from where I was when I was younger to where I am now, even where I was becoming a parent to where I am now, I'm still figuring out things, but man, am I doing such a better job than I was even 10 years ago. Right?
Yeah. That's intention and attention.
Yeah.
Start paying attention and then giving it the relevance. That's the thing, is we've discounted so many of these core components as useless. We've got to put the relevance back into them. And the necessity, I'm going to change that word, the necessity back into them.
I have put such an emphasis, and I do this with all my clients, on sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep is so restorative, and good sleep and adequate amounts of sleep is so restorative. You will be so much more productive. I feel like sleep is one of the number one things that goes out the door when there's a lot on our plate. Mm-hmm. I'll just keep going. I'll just keep going. But it is so restorative, and you are so much more productive and so much more clear-headed. You solve problems faster. And a tired mind is hard to manage.
Absolutely. Well, it dysregulates your entire system. That's when, sleep is when we heal. Sleep is when we balance biophysically, biochemically.
I talk about how important it is, but it is so important. And it evades us too, because when we're stressed and our cortisol levels are high and we want to sleep,
Yeah.
and then we can't. I know that's frustrating, but I've invested a lot of time and energy into making that a priority.
We all have different things that are sort of key components of getting back into places of balance. Like for me, one thing, something I didn't acknowledge for a very long time was I have to have nature. I have to have outside, outdoors, and in slices every day. And when I get over focused or hyper focused on a project that's keeping me in front of a computer or keeping me inside, if I forget to do that, it's detrimental across the board. And when I remember to do it, and I've literally scheduled it in times that I knew was going to be busy, this is my 30 minutes. I am outside. And I don't care if it's raining, if it's cold, I've got to get outside. And it's made a huge difference. I started doing that a few years ago. So I know that most of y'all have probably already figured out I like my lists. So I created there could be 1,000 things on this list, but I tried to distill down to a top 10 list of things that can help us, sort of tips for achieving life balance. Is that, you think that would be good to read through?
Yeah. So
as a good way.
So let's
sum up.
Do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Because that was me trying to say, let's dive in. Let's dive in.
All right. So right in line with exactly what we're talking about, put you on your schedule first, then schedule life after that. Give yourself permission to honor your own needs for rest, exercise, recreation. When you put yourself first, it's not selfish. Can't take care of anybody else or anything else if you don't take care of yourself. Simplify your life. Much easier said than done. The getting to simplification is not simple, but once you're there, it makes all the difference. And a big part of that, I'm sure many of you have heard of Marie Kondo, the Spark Your Joy. Well, there's a lot of relevance to that. Getting better organized, figuring out how you work in a system, but creating a system that works for you in your organization, and having things that you need in your day-to-day life that are easy access. All those things are important in terms of simplification. And then letting go and things and stuff and people and places that don't serve you, that don't aid in quality of life. Big one for both Alecia and I, learn to say no. Learn to say no. Without this critical skill, it's hard to own your own life. When you are a people pleaser, when you are constantly telling people yes, even though you, in your heart of hearts, know you should be saying no. It's hard to own your own life. Financial and emotional well-being are connected, but they're not mutually exclusive, meaning you can't have one without the other. That's a bad mindset to get into, but understanding that they are connected. And we're going to talk more about money and how it hangs us up a lot of times and misconceptions around money. We're going to talk more about that in some other episodes as well. Identify activities that give you energy. Like I just talked about being outside. I could be outside for 15 minutes and it will shift my framework incredibly. Surround yourself with high quality relationships. There is not enough space in our lives for people that consistently and constantly bring us down, pull from us without giving back. Moments in time where it's necessary, but if that's who you're constantly surrounding yourself with, it's going to be a detriment. It's going to keep pulling you down. Surround yourself with high quality people. Design a routine that allows you to accomplish what you need to get through. It's to get through your week smoothly. So don't give in to chaos. This goes back to that mindfulness piece too, becoming aware of what pulls us off track, what pulls us in unhealthy directions, and start making shifts away from those things. And that may sound simple, but it's not, because often it's got those things, those negative habits, those negative people and places, they've got their claws into us very deep, and we're not even aware of it. We've come to that place of just ignoring it or denial. So becoming more aware and changing those routines. Assess the use of technology in your life. So does it decrease stress or add to stress? And again, time's a necessity when it is, but we have made things necessary that really aren't. And so maybe that's an experiment you do. What do you call that? You have a term for it, Alecia. Technology detox or tech?
Mm-hmm. Tech
that,
detox.
Tech
yeah,
detox.
I mean, it's not mine. I didn't make it up, but it's out. I mean, people talk about it all the time, but there's times when I take certain apps off my phone. So I'm just not on them because I find social media, I'm extremely susceptible to it.
And I would encourage even small doses. And I know if you're a parent or a caregiver or things like that, this is maybe impossible or close to impossible, but maybe it's just smaller moments in time, but take moments of time to completely detach from technology. So take a 5-minute walk without your phone. Go to another room without any technology in it. Spend time, have a space that doesn't have a TV, that doesn't have a radio, that doesn't have an Alexa, that you can go in and just be quiet and be still. Mm-hmm. So something simple like that can actually help you separate yourself from that. Then every day, multiple times a day, in many cases, take time to relax your body. Just breathe, just sit, stretch, do 5 minutes of yoga, do 5 minutes of Qigong, walk outside and look at the trees. Make that a part of every single day. And then focus. I put your spiritual self, focus on your spiritual self, but focus on aspects of the world, the universe, nature that are bigger than yourself. Whatever your belief system is, there's a bigger than us. Take some time and make some space to focus on the bigger than us. Maybe you call it the greater good, or some aspect of giving back or becoming more attuned with your environment. But practice something every day that's going to help you tap into the bigger than you, whether it's meditation or journaling, greater wisdom, maybe study some ancient wisdoms or something like that, but something bigger than you. So that's my 10. I could keep going, but that's my 10.
Of course. That's your top 10. Of course. I'm curious. That almost sounds like something we should put together in a PDF that people would love to just have and be able to post up and remind themselves of these things that you share, this wisdom that you share. So I'm noodling on it like, more to come on that one. So
I like it.
With that being said, so I recommend going through your life, taking this time to look at these different aspects of your life. And that's some of what we're going to be breaking down as part of the retreat as well, is giving people that opportunity to really reset some areas of their life that may be out of balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned for more on that. We're really excited to share some things we've been working on. So with that being said, sending you so much love.
Be well, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.